Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to another Monday evening of the political consciousness of West Coast. Still a fan, better known as To an Imperfect Union. Tonight, I'm going to talk about something that we've talked about, I guess, a few times here on the show. And it seems to me that people may be confused by the term black conservative. And I tried to kind of address this notion uh, in a couple ways. One, when we had the recall here in California with uh, Larry Elder and some other people trying to recall Governor Newsom. And Larry Elder stepped in as a black conservative, and some of the well-known black conservatives, Dr. Thomas Sewell, an economist, and a few others have actually said that the black community is victimizing itself, and that we should um, take better advantage of the opportunities uh, of the opportunities that we have, rather than uh, concentrate on the negativity. So when I was looking at that, I also looked at the economic status of most of the people, the black people especially, that consider themselves conservatives. And the second part of that question was, can you be a black conservative without being a sellout? Well, uh, as I said, when you look at the economic status of the current uh, people that I have named as black conservatives, most of these people are in a higher income bracket, and to me, it's a term. It's more a system of wanting to hold on to what's mine rather than to share with those that are underprivileged, or at least that are more economically disadvantaged. um, I'm trying to find the article here. What is a conservative? And this article was actually written in 2020. And I'm just going to read it, or at least parts of it. Okay. Um, this article is written by uh, Steve Haney, and it was published February 13th, 2020. What does it? Okay, number one, a conservative. Uh, to be conservative, it's an aversion to rapid change, a belief that tradition and prevailing social norms often contain within them handed down wisdom and the mistrust of attempts to remake society so that it conforms to an abstract account of what would be just or efficient. Number two, a desire to preserve the political philosophy and rules of government articulated in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Three, a belief that it is imperative to preserve traditional morality as it is articulated in the Bible through cultural norms. Should I read that again? Number three, a belief that it is imperative to preserve traditional morality as it is articulated in the Bible through cultural norms. Four, a belief that it is imperative to preserve traditional morality, as it is articulated in the Bible using cultural norms and the power of the state. Five, an embrace of free market capitalism and a belief in the legitimacy of market outcomes. Excuse me for 1 second here. Okay. Um, where was I here? Okay. Um, Five, a free market capitalism and a belief in, okay, no, excuse me. Six, a belief that America is an exceptional nation, a shining city on a hill whose rightful role as a ruler, whose rightful role is leader of the free world. Seven, a belief that America should export its brand of democracy through force of arms. Should we read that again? A belief that America should export its brand of democracy through force of arms. Hmm. Sound familiar? Let's go on. 8. A conviction that government should undertake on behalf of the American politi- uh, politically, 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 grand projects that advance our natural greatness and ennoble our characters, make America great again. 9. An embrace of localism, community and family ties, human scale, and a responsibility of the future. Uh, okay. And, okay. Um, Number 9. An embrace of localism, community, and family ties, human scale, and a responsibility of the future. Number 10, a belief that America shouldn't intervene in the affairs of other nations except to defend themselves from aggression and to enforce contracts and treaties. Now, maybe it's just me, but there seems to be a contradiction here already. Uh, Hold on 1 second here. I think, um, where am I? Okay, okay. Excuse me for 1 minute. Let's see. Um, where am I here? Okay. Um, number 7. Number 7. A belief that America should export its brand of democracy through force of arms. Number 10, a belief that America shouldn't intervene in the affairs of other nations except to defend ourselves from aggression and enforce contracts and treaties. Is it just me, or does there seem to be a contradiction here between number 7 and number 10? But to go on, number 11, a desire to return to the way things once were. Read that again. A desire to return to the way things once were. Hmm. Sounds like a lot of those voting things that we were talking about. Number 12, affinity for identification with or the embrace of red America's various cultural hues. For example, gun ownership, a preference for single family homes oriented around highways rather than urban enclaves, organized around public transit, embrace of country music, disdain for arugula, fancy mustard, so forth, so on. Number 13, a disdain for American liberalism, multiculturalism, identity politics, affirmative action, welfare, European style social policies, and the left and its ideas generally. Kind of goes back to number 11, right? A desire to return to the way things once were. But let's go on. Number 14, a desire to be left alone by government, often coupled with a belief that being left alone is a natural right. Number 15, a principled belief in federalism. Number 16, the belief that taxes should be lower and government smaller. Number 17, the belief that the natural debt and deficits put America in peril. Number 18, the belief that whenever possible, government budgets should be balanced. They didn't have any problem borrowing from Social Security when they were looking for weapons of mass destruction for George Bush's war. But I digress. Okay. Number 19, consciousness of the fallibility of man and an awareness of the value of skepticism, doubt, and humility. 20, realism and foreign government. 121. A non-interventionist, interventionist, intravenous in foreign policy. Let me send Dr. Casey the link here. I'm sorry. Okay. Hold on. That must be me here. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let me send this to you. All right. Okay. There you go. I knew it had to be something with Dr. Casey because usually she is here quite, excuse me, couldn't see things here for a minute. Let me try to, okay, we just sent that link. We got that link off to Dr. Casey. And where am I now? Okay. I was, where was it? Okay. Okay. I was number 21, non-interventionalism in foreign policy. But once again, I have to go back up to where is it? Number 7, a belief that America should exploit its brand of democracy through force of arms. Does that sound like non-interventional? Intervening in foreign policy? So, once again, whenever I run into a conservative, it always seems to be someone that is, I don't want to say rich, but usually someone that fits within something well above the poverty line. Okay. So when I say that, I see Dr. Casey is here. Okay. Let's get Dr. Casey up here. Dr. Casey, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. What do you mean you did? I'm starting to think you and Miss Sims have a conspiracy. One week she doesn't get it, the next week you don't get it, and
That's you. That ain't us.
but I sent it to you on the same on the same one.
Uh-uh. You didn't send it this time.
uh, but anyway, so how are you doing this evening?
I'm a little exhausted, but I'm all right.
Okay, hard day on the grill or
Just been
mentally
moving
or what?
around. I had to, so my internet in my car isn't working, so I'm trying to get that fixed. But it's one of those newer type of issues that they don't really know how to fix. So I took it up there and was there for a few hours today, and then I gotta take it back in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, I could tell you a story. Well, when you talk about because okay, we had some work done on our car,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not a new Lexus, but it's a serviceable one. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so now they couldn't get us a new transmission,
Mm-hmm.
but they could get us a reconditioned transmission. And they're talking about, like I just looked at the commercial and I'm thinking, I should have listened to Ice T and them, when they were talking about, like make sure you get this auto cert, because now, now it's, it is like $5,000 for a transmission,
I bought
Eh,
a transmission for my Tahoe a couple of years ago, and it was about that much.
yeah,
And it did it works, but it just doesn't run the same. I always try to get a new car. I don't try to get used because I have to have a warranty, especially if I got to make payments.
I hear that.
I,
I
I
hear
I can't I can't get a car without a warranty if I have to make payments on it because that means that it's gonna be out of pocket if you don't have a warranty if something goes wrong. So
yeah,
it
and
just that don't sit well with me.
I understand. I understand. I understand that.
Especially if because nowadays car payments are expensive. It ain't like you paying $100 or $200. It's normally, depend especially if you got a luxury car or a foreign car, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, there's something that I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm kind of I'm gonna go off the charts here because
Okay.
uh, um,
Should I brace myself?
no, no, no. But a lot of us are in different states,
Mhm.
and the only perception that we have of some politicians or some personalities are that which we get from social media.
Mhm.
And I've often talked to you about the different situations that are particular to your particular state or particular to your particular town, Atlanta. But I want to talk to you about Stacey Abrams because you do not seem to be as keen as the rest of the nation on Stacey.
So, I like her credentials. I admire the things that she's accomplished. However, I am not a big Democratic supporter because they don't all none of the parties seem to be in the best interest of the people. They're in the best interest of self. So, and what I know about politics in general, one, what I learned from Obama is that well, not just Obama, because Obama, I think, did well given the position that he was placed in as the first black president. But what I've learned from previous candidates, especially black ones, is that just because you're black doesn't mean that you're going to do the things that we need you to do. And just because that's your campaign doesn't mean that that's what's going to be able to be done. So a lot of people see skin tone and they automatically believe that it's going to get them what they want. And one, sometimes what we want is not what we need. And then two, normally what you campaign to do is not what you're actually capable of doing once you get into that office. It takes a lot more than what people believe for them to get things to get moved into legislation and to really become what we are hoping for collectively. But I just feel like a lot of times, especially Democrats, they sell us a lot of hopes and dreams, and then it don't come through. So I am just not enthused. And then I know, like, if she would have won this last time around, she definitely would have enforced the vaccinations and a whole bunch of extracurricular strict stuff that now we know is null and void, and so I kind of sit a lot of things out, but I don't complain either. I don't watch a lot of stuff, news. I don't. What I try to do, my role in society and in politics is to be a unbiased opinion and unbiased party. So I'm not for either side. I just want to be able to um, speak what I see and not feel like somebody is trying to sway me based on what they think my vote will be. So, in some instances, I don't vote. In some instances, I don't necessarily disagree with Kemp, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that Stacey is saying either. I really don't like right now that they are running these ads about uh, the Roe v. Wade and talking about the right to abortion more than abstinence. That throws me for a loop, sis, because you should be telling people about practicing safe sex and not trying to win the election off of that. If that's your only, thing that you can win off of, then she lost me. But
But hold on, Doc, because see, you lost me there.
go ahead.
I, I I'm 75 years old, and I don't want nobody telling me that I got to abstain. I mean, come on now.
It's not about telling you to
I mean,
abstain.
you know,
But
come on
you
now.
70 something years
Look.
old, you know how to make sensible choices. You're not out here having sex randomly, unprotected, and then using abortion as birth control. Even
But
if you did it then, it wasn't. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with having random sex, and not getting to know a person, and then subjecting yourself to pregnancy randomly all the time and waiting for abortion to be your birth control versus being a selective partner. Don't You cannot be with. I don't like people that be with everybody. I'm not
well,
that type of
I,
person. I've never been that type of person, and I don't support those actions.
I understand that. But when you talk about some older generations that have went through, that free love phase or whatever you want to call it, back in the day, when you had a baby mom on every corner. Papa was a Rolling Stone and all that.
Right, but
And
they
now,
those babies came to life. That's why
yeah,
it's so many, I
yeah,
believe yeah, I would rather, but they dealt with the consequences of their choices by having the child that they laid down and conceived. Maybe I'm old school when I say I don't believe in abortions as the go-to mechanism, because I don't. I believe if you lay down there and you have unprotected sex and you're choosing to risk pregnancy, then you need to deal with the consequences of your actions. That's called accountability.
yes, I definitely understand what you're saying there. But then again, I'm looking at some of these applications, Tinder, and some of all of which is basically a one night stand on the internet.
That's not true.
You don't need
Everybody isn't looking for a one night stand. But if you go into a one night stand and you already know that you could get pregnant, that you're able to conceive, because everybody isn't able to conceive either. If you know that you're prone to conception, let's say that, because it's a lot of people that's out here just sleeping around and they are prone to conception. They have babies like, yeah, you go and find candy at the candy store. But if you know that you are like that, then you need to either one, be more selective so that you're not getting the piss poor baby daddy or baby mama, because women be trash too. Um, just like men be trash when it comes to co-parenting, being agreeable, taking the best interest of the children at heart, all of those things. This is not just about throwing away a baby after you didn't lay it down and gave your body to somebody. This is about the accountability and the responsibility that goes with it. So either you need to be more careful who you're sleeping with, or you need to be more mindful of not just sleeping with people unprotected. Don't use abortion as birth control. That is an abuse of the system. It's like abusing of power.
Yeah, I'm not, saying, I necessarily disagree. I'm just talking about circumstances that people find themselves in at some time.
Hey,
But, but you
you
know,
don't find yourself in, you don't just slip into some coochie, okay? You have meditated
but
plans, and I don't care if a woman comes on to you. You know when you go around certain women, just like women know when they go around certain men, you need to always be prepared.
yeah,
You already know what this
there's-
person is on. You know what the vibe is like. Even if you're going on Tinder, if you're going on Match.com, or if you're going on Facebook dating, you if you going there looking for sex, then you know what comes with sex.
oh yeah,
I be in a lot of groups, and a lot of people talk about they want to meet somebody and all of that, but a lot of people just be browsing and bored.
yeah, yeah, and sometimes, like I said, it sometimes they just be curious to see what's going on, but um, we have kind of talked about conservatism and black conservatives many times on this show. And just before you came on, I read from an article,
Mhm.
what is a conservative? And do you think that one of the things that I have found, that usually conservatives are people that are above the poverty level. Um, and sometimes I think it's a matter of wanting to hold on to what's mine rather than share, or at least share the knowledge of how to obtain with those that are perhaps economically or mentally or whatever, on a level under you. And a lot of times that is, I think, just because we have been trained to uh, not pull up those that are underneath us, but to brag about what we have and to kind of flaunt it in the face of those that are underprivileged. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know if we've been trained to brag as much as there is conditioning and there is training that goes on, but it's more of when you've not it's people that are in extreme poverty, they are more likely to be more braggadocious and want to brag and floss more because they didn't have. And the society that we've grown up and come up in, especially for black people, it teaches us that we have to look and dress a certain way in order to be respected, in order to be admired, in order to be esteemed as an influencer. So a lot of people, if you just, I can think about a whole lot of movies where you could see people be conditioned, like, well, you got to look like this and do your hair like this, and you got to, be a certain way in order to be accepted. So now people, so when you reach that level and people start to feel like, okay, now I got the things that I need in order to be accepted, because one, they normally don't have any self acceptance. They esteem below, and the poverty that they've come up in has shaped their mind to be it's a selfishness that comes with poverty. So when you get it, everybody isn't eager to share the knowledge. I mean, because most people feel like you got to sell the knowledge. And if you make everything for sale, then the people that really need it the most can't obtain it. So it is it is, I guess it is a part of the conditioning to, once you get something or once you start looking nice, you got to put yourself on display, because now you're trying to attract more success in the people that, will buy into your product, brand, or campaign.
I agree with you that it's usually those that are on the lowest level that choose to want to floss and make sure they got your Jordans and the new whip, or have to be seen up in the club buying bottles and so forth,
Mhm.
and can't they got a jar of peanut butter in the cupboard at home.
And
Yeah,
sometimes it be like that. Even with women though, women will go and they will have on all of these expensive things, and then they borrowing money in order to get it, and not borrowing like credit cards, like borrowing from friends and stuff like that. They ain't got no place. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of women, especially when you think about social media models, where they look so good. They got all the makeup, they got the expensive hair, but they ain't got no house. They ain't got no, they have no car, they have no furniture, they have nothing but their image online. And they use their image online in order to come up. And if you get naked enough, that image online, it begins to appeal to people, and people think that you're doing better than you are. And you don't have to just get naked, but most of the girls that's on social media that blow up, they eventually, but you're conditioned to kind of, the nakedness part is like subjective, because as I get older and I admire my body shape and type, it makes me more proud of who I am and my body. Especially in a day where all of these women are getting these BBLs and they getting implants here and surgery there, and everything is, like cosmetically done. It makes you more proud of your natural body when it's natural. But for women that are natural, it shouldn't be a competition, but mentally it's a direct competition with people that got all of these, you know, engineered bodies.
um, wow, okay. It's uh, no,
'Cause it all goes hand in hand. The girls go get the bodies. Normally, the people that's paying for the girls to go get the bodies is the guys that get straight out of poverty, and they wanna put the bottles on, and then everybody's fronting in order to come up, and eventually, for most people, they end up coming up, especially because of the way social media is worked right now. It's like scam city. You just tell a person anything, and as long as you only show that type of, information, they'll believe you. And then they buy into your lies in most cases.
well, we have become a nation, and of that instant gratification. Like you said,
Mhm,
if you don't have it, you can buy it.
mhm.
In most cases, from
And that's crazy.
well, and it was things that might have been unheard of, or that were really like we thought like, hey, only rich people do that, but
Well, mostly it was, I think it my impression was that sick people, what I'm saying, people that had medical need for it, and then it became like a routine thing, like everybody is going to getting their stomach put into their booty, and I mean, like, it's like crazy. And then most of the time, the craziest part is that over the course of time, it no longer looks natural. And a lot of these girls are getting it done so young that they don't realize that when you get about 25, 30, 35, your body fills out anyways.
uh, yeah, yeah. It- the first thing that comes to my mind when you say that, of course, is tattoos. When like, what is that tattoo going to look like? When she's your age,
See,
or
but tattoos are a little bit different. I got a lot of tattoos. For me, when I get older, because my tattoos have meaning, they're not like frivolous. None of my tattoos are just like, oh, one day I just woke up and just was, just had to go get something crazy. So for that, I mean, of course, your skin eventually will begin to be saggy and all of that. But if it's something that you got that because it has meaning, then it's more of the meaning than the look, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I mean, there are some people that that will work for,
Hmm.
but there are a whole lot of people that will not work for. That assume that you know, just because it's there, you don't have to buy everything that you see. You
Right.
know,
Well,
nor do you,
people is getting them tattoos removed nowadays,
and
and that's just
and
crazy.
and that's even worse when you look at what people have to go through in
Hmm.
order to get those tattoos removed. It really makes you say, well, damn, why did I do this in the first place? Especially those people that got them all on their face and places like that. And but kind of getting off the subject here,
I'm sorry.
but conservative conservatism and black conservatism especially, and I reread these uh, because okay, number one, this is what a conservative is supposed to be. It's 21 of them. An aversion to rapid change, a belief that tradition and prevailing social norms often contain within them, handed down by wisdom, and a mistrust of attempts to remake society so that it conforms to an abstract account of what would be just or efficient. Number two, a desire to preserve the political philosophy and rules of government articulated in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. Number three, you notice I'm pausing here, right? Number three, a belief that it is imperative to preserve through traditional morality as it is articulated in the Bible through cultural norms. Number four, a belief that it is imperative to preserve traditional morality as it is articulated in the Bible using cultural norms and the power of the state. I'm gonna stop there. What do you think about three and four?
I'm a liberal. Listen, okay, so um, it
you
sounds like
know,
most of
you,
the government
I
is
mean,
really conservative.
I mean, you know, I am. When you start talking about the Bible and religion, automatically, I'm looking for the gun. I want, But anyway, so
Okay, so when you talk about the Bible and religion, you got to talk about the foundations of what America, um, what United States was formed on America to represent. I had to rephrase that because America is the land, and the United States is the business that occupies the land. And I like to make that clear because there's a big difference. So when you talk about um, being a conservative, those are really like the Confederates, the people that believed in that nature. When you talk about anything else after that, when you talk about like Republicans versus Democrat, those are just the same. They are picking a side of um the overall spectrum, but it's all, when you really look at it, it's all the same thing. All of these Republicans and Democrats hold on to traditional views and values, and most of them don't want to change. And I'm not talking about the LBGT rights or the Asian rights or none of that. I'm talking about like the things that will really cause great change, and evolutionize what we know as the United States of America to be.
so what happened to the separation of church and state.
Has it ever really been separate? Let's be honest. Like everything state wise is really based on religion. Now they may take prayer out of school, but it's look at all the other things that they're holding fast to, whether it be the laws that is supportive of imprisonment and slavery, the laws that are supportive of diminishing who black people are, who women are, and the collective. Everything is geared to uphold the Bible. The whole thing is written based on the beliefs of the Bible. If you ask me, that's why Christianity is the dominant thing in America. And if you are anything other than Christian, you looked at like something is wrong with you.
Uh, let's go on. Okay. Number five, an embrace of free market capitalism and a belief in the legitimacy of market outcomes. Number six, a belief that America is an exceptional nation, a shining city on a hill, whose rightful role is leader of the free world.
That all sound like the Bible. They just phrased it a little bit different. They put a little jazz on it.
Number seven, and there's a couple of things in here that I'm going to kind of wonder how they don't fit together. But anyway, number seven, a belief that America should export its brand of democracy through force of arms. Where have you heard that before? Okay. Number eight, a conviction that government should undertake on behalf of the American polity grand projects that advance our natural greatness and ennoble our characters. Number nine, an embrace of localism, community and family ties, human scale, and a responsibility to the future. Now, here's where it gets a little dicey for me. You remember I read number seven, a
Mhm.
belief that America should export its brand of democracy through force of arms. Through force of arms. Okay. But
Sounds like
number
Christian crusades.
but number 10 says a belief that America shouldn't interfere in the affairs of other nations except to defend ourselves from aggression and enforce contracts
Right.
and enforce contracts and treaties. We haven't done so good with treaties. You can ask the Indians about that.
We ain't
Uh,
done so good with none of that. Other than taking over stuff and bullying people. Getting involved where that thing just say we don't shouldn't be involved in.
Number 11, a desire to return to the way things once were. Hmm, okay.
In which time period?
Didn't say that. It just said a desire to return to the way things were. But number 12, an affinity for, identification with, or embrace of Red America's various cultural cues. For example, gun ownership, a preference for single family homes oriented around highways rather than urban enclaves, organized around public transit, and praise country music, disdain for arugula, fancy, But anyway, okay. Number 13, a disdain for American liberalism, multiculturalism, identity politics, affirmative action, welfare, European style social policies, and the left and its ideas in general. What's your thoughts so far?
So, what I wrote down is that I don't like that um when it comes to politics and labels, if you claim, like, you could have beliefs that cross every spectrum, that you may believe some things that you know what I'm saying, for conservatives, some things that liberals believe, some things that Republicans believe, some things that Democrats believe. You might have something in all of those areas that you can gravitate to, and what we do, it's like, if you are one, you can't agree with the other. If you are this, then you can't like that. And I think that that diminishes our rights, our mindsets as humans, because we shouldn't all have to agree on every single thing to be able to make change or do things that are powerful, so that the United States can stay what it was created to be. Because there's some things in there that I don't necessarily disagree with. It's some things that Republicans say that I don't necessarily disagree with. Some things that Democrats say that I don't necessarily disagree with, but I would identify more as a liberal because I am open to more of um, new infrastructure, new policies and procedures, really gutting the whole concept of how things have been done and imaging everything.
Number 14 is desire to be left alone by government, often coupled with a belief that being left alone is a natural right. Um, there are part, I can understand the wording, but when I look, every day and I see, a minority being abused by the police, or I look at, I hear some of the policies that are coming out of the mouths of some of these politicians, it would seem to me that you need government in order to stop the people that are quote unquote in power from taking even more advantage of those that do not have the power. Good example, when you look at uh, the way we handle politics today, and we still have people talking about the election was stolen. But you know, uh, there's no explanation of, well, if this party won, the election was stolen, but yet and still I was elected. So why is, how is my election fair, but that one not? I mean, so it does seem to me that, you have to, especially in today's society, and it's a pity because we are in 2022, but to still have to try to, you can't, to me, you can't govern or regulate a person's feelings. The example I use is, the people in my neighborhood that had Trump signs on their lawn, but now they're gone. Well, the sign is gone, but has it changed anything in their heart? Has it changed the way that they look at me when I walk by their house? I mean, but anyway, 15, a principled belief in federalism. 16, a belief that taxes should be lower and government smaller. I think we all kind of want that. Uh, but once again, when the people that are making all the money aren't paying the taxes, it does seem to me that somebody needs to step in and regulate. Well, like, hey, you need to pay your fair share too. A belief that the national debt and deficits put America in peril. Uh, that always seems to be their policy, but when Donald Trump was in office, we went $3 trillion in debt. So once again, it depends upon the party and what's good for the party, not what's good for the individual taxpayer. So I think that's a lot of bullshit there too. Uh, 19. Uh, oh, wait a minute. I skipped one here. 18. The belief that whenever possible, government budgets should be balanced. Well, if you have deficit spending, you can't have a balanced budget. And I'll let you catch up with it.
If you're giving all the money away to other countries, all willy nilly, we ain't gonna never get out of debt. So I think that government is more of an infrastructure to protect um, the wealthiest from the revenge of the not so wealthy. Because um, if there was not a government in place, I think that there would be, it may be more stable, it may be more balanced, because the people that's in higher positions, they would be a little bit more fearful of the way they treat people and how they act. But as long as government is in place, then there's a system that kind of protects the wealthy in ways that the non-wealthy are not protected, and it actually helps keep the information bottled up, because it's more the government that don't want us to know the truth than it is the people in the high positions, because the government benefits from it all. Like, um that's not very perplexing to me. The government benefits the most from everything that is in place. And then I was thinking about there was something that I heard. I wanted to say, I don't think that it was on here, but I was listening to something and they were saying it was a clip where they was talking about as long as poverty exists and hunger exists, it allows for the servitude of people to remain good. So as long as you keep people hungry and poor, they'll keep wanting to work for others. They'll keep wanting to um, be at will and kind of enslaved to the system in place. But if you feed everybody, then the system will no longer function.
I think I've heard that before too. I'm not sure if it was one of the premises of the Deacons or the Panthers, but I have heard that
It
before.
was a I think when I heard it, it was in a book, like an old book, one of the books that I probably need to buy, and and it was like outlined, like as long as you keep poor people poor and hungry, then they will work harder. They'll be more diligent about earning other people money, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Number
Slaves ain't
19.
gonna be slaves if they ain't got a slave. You know what I'm saying? Like, if life get too easy, people I don't think that the world would get worse. I think it would get better, but a better world is not good for the economy. I mean, it is, but they don't see it like that.
Well, once again, you start talking about the distribution of wealth, and you're getting into a whole different uh, realm of conversation. Number 19, consciousness of the fallibility, excuse me, the fallibility of man and the awareness of the value of skepticism, doubt, and humility. 20, realism in foreign policy. And 21, non intervening in foreign policy. Now, I looked at 21, and then I went back and I looked at 7 again. A belief that America should export its brand of democracy through a force of arms. And uh, number 10, a belief that America shouldn't intervene in the affairs of other nations except to defend ourselves from aggression and, as I said, to enforce contracts. And we'll just forget about the treaties. But it seems to me that especially those three things, seem to be in vast contradiction. I mean, you look at what we did, in Iraq, with the weapons of mass destruction. You look at how we left the Kurds. Uh, uh, you look at kind of our history of what we have done to our allies down through the ages. How can you possibly say that we have conservatives have a non-intervention policy when it's usually the conservative administrations that go on these sort of colonialism type fishing expeditions?
So, do you believe that there are more conservatives in office than not conservative?
Um, I'm starting to believe that we have more conservatives or separatists
Hmm.
in office than we have had during any part of the history that I've lived in this country since the '60s. I mean, I'm still waiting for the dogs to be sicked on people in the streets. I'm still I'm still waiting to see another we shall overcome rally. Another I have a dream speech. Things that I mean, I I'm one of those that every day, you know, it seems to me that I've been walking around the last 20 years with my eyes wide shut because I did not realize that America had gotten to this place simply behind the fact that I was so wrapped up in what I have done, what I have accomplished, and what I want to do rather than worrying about the plight of my people.
So, um, what do you think should be done moving forward?
That's what's so perplexing to me because it, it seems like the message has been out there, but once again, and I'm not, I can't blame it on your generation because my generation did the same thing. You old folks go sit back there and we'll take care of this, and we ain't gonna work as hard as y'all did. We gonna make sure our kids did, had this and that and the other, and uh, hey, make sure you get out to vote, and education is the key. Uh, home ownership, all of those things that we grew up thinking were staples, uh, have become the a myth.
I don't know
Pe-
if I agree with that because I see a lot of people um going into home ownership and really thriving to not just be home owners but to be door holders. That means like they got multiple properties, and it may be, again, my view may be a little bit perplexed because I'm in Atlanta, and I try to follow a lot of affluent and influential people that are making moves and helping other people make moves. But I think that we're in a position right now where, as a people, we're understanding wealth and financial literacy a lot more than ever before. This is the first time that we really had people to teach us anything about being financially stable, about credit. Now, some of these things that are going around now seem a little gimmicky or a little bit like a fail safe system. So, but a lot of the things that are going around are things that the wealthy people do to kind of manipulate the system themselves. So it is, I see a lot of changes before me, and coming for generations to come, because now that people are learning what's available and how to make these moves, they're able to teach it to their youth and their families and just people in general. Now, some of them are teaching it in order to show off and come up, but as long as it's getting out there.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. And I understand what you're saying. About multi, multi owning multi homes and things like that. But also look in a lot of urban areas, inner city areas. And I'm talking about from Newark, possibly Camden, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and to a certain extent out here in San Diego. I'm not as close to the hood as I was in those other cities, but I see, and even in Youngstown, the city that I was born in, I see blocks where there were multi family homes, duplexes, and now there might be one house on the block. For instance, my house, 315 Kenmore, the house that I was born in. There's three houses on that side, on my side of the street, the odd side of the street.
But
There's
who's
five
buying up the
houses
property?
on the even side of the street, and though the people that I grew up knowing, those families are gone now. You
Hmm.
know,
But so the question is who's buying up the property? Because if it's just property that's sitting idle for sale that the city own that people can buy, then it's just a matter of people learning that these areas need to be developed before gentrification starts.
oh yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I don't even know whether some of these programs exist anymore. But back in the day, you had homestead programs where you could
Mhm.
go in and renovate those old houses, that were there. Now you have the same, when you when you look on TV, you see white people that are renovating these old houses and selling them to black people.
See,
Don't
but it's
see,
not that's just what they put on TV. It's almost
right.
like it's a lot of things I believe that black people have done for a long time, but they don't put black people on TV as successful. It'll mess up their branding.
Of
It's
course.
not good for business. So I mean, and I won't say that because there are shows with black people doing the same things, but it's just a lot less of those.
A lot less of
S-
those.
a
And,
whole lot less.
and I also think that we are still on a quota system, and
See,
where
but you got wait, because you got to consider the black people that don't want to be videotaped, the black people that don't want that type of attention of the spotlight. Everybody don't want to be famous. Everybody is not trying to showboat and be out in front of the camera. So I have to make sure that we account for the people that want to be low key.
right, but okay, and this kind of goes back to a conversation that I was having with an African gentleman when he was talking about uh, the work ethic of the immigrant black as opposed to
Listen, I've
y-
heard that.
yeah,
Well,
okay,
me and one of my homeboys
well,
was just talking about that because I don't believe that. I think that Africans like immigrant Africans um, think that Black Americans are I don't know if they think that we're lazy or we
yes,
don't take
yes,
the opportunities that we should take, that we don't know how to hustle, but the struggle is different, and the
much
struggle is
different.
different because they come from a place to where they can kind of freely hustle and do whatever they want to, versus here when if you get enough success, you become a target not only of other um nationalities, not only of the police and the government, but you become a target of your own people too. And I think that part I agree with the narrative behind Africans on, because if we stuck together more, we would be able to accomplish more. but we
but
don't have that concept and mentality.
but my premise is that if we're both sitting out there in a position where we're both going in for interviews, we're dressed identically. The interviewer doesn't know who's an African and who's an American. The only thing he sees out there is two black people until you
Until you
open
start
your mouth.
talking. Yeah.
Right.
I said, once you start talking.
Right. You know, so, it's not, that so much that we may, are lazy or anything like that, but there's also that presumption that, once he opens his mouth, he's also a step ahead because, oh well, he's coming in and he has a different mindset.
We
This
gonna work.
guy here, yeah, this guy here wants to stay home 3 days a week. So it's a whole different concept once you open your mouth. But as far as appearance, you know, brother, hey, like what's that? Black like me,
Mhm.
you know. So that and I also think, and I know that this is might cause an upstart in the LGBTQ community, but I also think that there is a quota system in place, and it has been for quite some time. And the more boxes that you can check off in that interview process or in that process, then it's all about the business. It's not about whether or not we have the same uh, belief systems, whether or not we support the same type of legislation. It's about, okay, he's black. Oh, okay, that's one box. He's black and he's gay. That's two boxes. He's black. He's
It's
gay.
right
He's
now.
black. He's gay and he's liberal. Okay, you know, and he's married to a white man. I mean, I can go on. It's about the boxes that you check off, not about the substance of your character.
I mean, but that's just like anything else. People want to now in society especially, people are trying to prevent lawsuits. So they're doing not what they need, they're doing what looks acceptable to the majority. And it's more about acceptance than anything else. Because, the LGBTQ community is vicious. They some bullies. Like they probably got picked on when they was coming up, but they are vicious. You can't say nothing without somebody. But just in general, though, not just them, you can't say anything without somebody being offended. It's just like they was getting on Beyonce for saying spaz. Like, what is wrong? That is not no. That she's exploiting mental health.
Ah,
Like,
man, look,
so regular people
yeah,
can't like just because you
I
ain't got mental health issues, or you like you don't know if she in the mental health community, like if she is a
look,
part of the group or
I,
not.
the, I,
People are so damn sensitive
I,
now. It's just sickening.
I, I've heard all of these preachers, Beyonce and Satanism, and Beyonce and this and that, and I mean, see, and like I said, like I grew up in the church, and it just turned me against religion for the rest of however many days I have left on here because I've seen the backbiting and the
Hmm.
infighting and and all of that and now you have so much division I mean, come on, for if if my grandmother was alive now and you told her that tithing was wrong, she'd probably go up and slap the preacher because she had done it all her life.
Because they was trained to do that.
Right. You know, you know, there were certain things that were acceptable. That there was don't ask, don't tell in the church long before it was in the military. I mean, come on now, you know.
Right. Right.
So, like I said, it, for somebody that has come through 3/4 of a century, there's a lot of things that that used to be, and you damn near need a program to keep up with what is acceptable if you're going by what's politically correct rather
Mhm.
than by what you thought
Truly
was
feel.
correct, or
Mhm.
you grew up thinking was correct. Like I said, some of the things that I said to your grandmama, that if I said them to you today, they'd have me under the jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you know,
Lord.
what you doing talking about how that, so forth, but
The world is
what,
hypersensitive right now, and it's like
but not, not. Here's a woman that's got tattoos all over her body. She got her skirt, reasonably short or whatever. Now, back in my day, I'm like, hey, babe, can I see all of the rest of them tattoos? Today I'm getting slapped. You know what I'm saying? What uh, you know, uh, uh, not only that, but women are now showing tattoos. Before that was something, it was something that you hid. Say if you talked about a woman having a piercing, she was fast. you know, things that the world has turned full circle, but yet and still it has managed to stay
the
stagnant
same. Mhm.
in so many others. You know,
That's why I asked if you believe that a lot of what we have in government now is conservatism because um we not really growing. We are stagnant as a nation in more ways than not.
last Wednesday, I did a show. And the reason why I did this show is because when I first started out this show, I used to have a lot of veterans and people off of Facebook, and it was mostly a liberal platform, not a black liberal platform, but a liberal platform. So last Wednesday, I went back to my previous format, and I had two Vietnam veterans. I had
I tapped in for a second.
and I had a lady that has three interracial kids, and a teacher from rural Pennsylvania. And it amazed me how the thoughts of these people, the most important thing to them was how we can avoid a civil war. And I had never even thought of things in that you know uh, fashion, because this is 2022. I mean, so to me, even talking about something like this, and especially, I mean, we're not down with one shot muskets and stuff anymore. I mean, you can look at the Ukraine. I mean, so, you know, have we gotten to the point where, well, I guess we have, because we've heard secessionist talk from Florida, we've heard it from Texas, So I guess in some ways, like I said, you know, are we returning to the states' rights? Mean, you know, as I pointed out in the conservative thing, going back to the way things were, the way things were before the Civil War, the way things were before, after the Civil War, the way things were before the Civil Rights Act. I mean, what do you mean when you say return to the way things were? How far back? And you know, uh, I didn't got too old to have somebody, strap me up to a tree talking about, 50 lashes and shit. I mean, come on.
I don't think we're gonna never go that far back. We ain't dealing with the same type of people. These young people
No, now they do.
nowadays,
Nowadays they just out here in California, we had 5 people that the Christmas decorations last year. You know, come on, how many people? How many black people that go and commit suicide by hanging themselves? Let's be real. I mean, seriously, we do a lot of stupid shit, but hanging ourselves by suicide is not one of them.
right
At least not usually. I mean, the first thing everybody's talking about the availability of a gun. You know, in a lot of cases, it might be easier to get a gun than a rope, depending on where
Mhm.
you live at.
Now you're gonna make me think about Jesse.
Yeah, well, like I said, hey, you know, w- it used to be when we were dealing with drugs. When white people started dying, we started doing something about it. We started making
Mhm.
laws. We started,
Same
we
with
doubled,
opioids.
we doubled the jail sentences, the whole 9 yards. But now, police are so empowered. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter what status you. I mean, we've seen them beat up soldiers that are going home from their duties. You know, we've seen them. Like abuse mothers that had their kids in the car. I mean, so where do we stop? We have people killing children, and yet and still we still need that 35 shot clip. We
Right.
still need that. We still need that mag. I'm going squirrel hunting today, Jim. Make sure you break out the M60. Uh, and, you know, you got some ducks. Hey man, I got a mortar back here that I've been waiting to fire for years.
If
Hey,
there was an uproar, it would be more of the people against the government because of the way things are. Because, in reality, the real division isn't white and black for real, for real. I mean, that is just what we've been programmed to think, see, and believe. The real division is from those that's in power that want to maintain power, and they know that as long as everyone is divided, they are in power.
yeah, but and like I said, it does seem like where there was a point in time where we seized the opportunity. It was like, okay, uh, it's like you got on the bus and, okay, well, I'm I'm at my destination now. I'm gonna pick up my bags, but where am I gonna go? You know, I'm
Well, how
here.
was that your destination if you didn't know where you was going?
Well, but I knew I was going to Los Angeles, you know, and I'm in Los Angeles. But now I don't know anybody in Los Angeles. I don't know how to make my way around Los Angeles. I don't. I mean, so it, it seems like that's what we did. We seized the opportunity, equal education, job opportunities, education opportunities, and then we said, "We're here. We are here, Lord. We have arrived," and we just stopped.
See, you got to remember that there's a power structure in place that, like I said before, as long as we are hungry, in poverty, and dependent on the system, then the system knows that we are truly mentally enslaved, even when not physically enslaved, and will continue to feed the system that is really diminishing us. And that, I mean, sounds like Stockholm syndrome to me, where you know the people are treating you bad and you know that they did some wrong stuff, but instead of trying to um, go against what's wrong, you end up fallen in love with the concept of what it is that you've been taught to believe.
We are the victims of domestic violence that have gotten used to getting our ass kicked.
Survivors, but yeah,
And, you know, you
survivors that accept it
yeah,
and
you
is
know,
okay with, if this is
yeah,
what I got to
yeah,
go through, I'm okay with going through it.
yeah,
You know,
they didn't mean it.
he died for my suffering. We gonna suffer with him, like,
You know, hey,
if you suffer with him, you'll reign with him.
uh,
See, but
uh,
that's the part of the mentality that church feeds into. And when it comes to mass mind conditioning and programming, when you have the church system that is structured around slavery, around being subjected to, then it already is putting you in a position to be exactly what they need you to be instead of what you want to be or what you could possibly be and reach your full potential.
okay, now I want to talk to you a little bit about Speaking Freedom TV
Hmm.
because I want to know what is the platform or how do you reach your audience when a lot of young people don't want or don't or don't seem to want direction? Is it because it's by someone in a peer in their age group and they don't trust elders, or is it the fact that uh, social media is a much more flexible market?
It's I want to say a little bit of both, in addition to the fact that it's how you talk to people. So instead of belittling people, being condescending, being condemning, instead of looking to seem like I am mighty and I'm above, I often use my own stories, my own narrative in order to help people to identify what they're going through, what the people around them are going through, and how to improve the lifestyle that they have and form it into what it wants to be. And that is the main thing, because if I talk to you the way you want to be talked to, if I'm not trying to make you feel bad and trying to, and teach you self acceptance, then it's more likely that you will become a better person. But I think that you were good when you said it seems like, because a lot of people do want education and direction. It just depends on where they're getting it from. It depends on what they've been programmed to be willing to accept. There was a preacher on Spiritual Word. Um, they posted something where the preacher's like, you got to keep a nigga's nose open or something that was a little bit crazy, but what he said wasn't wrong, but the people was mad because he said it from the pulpit, because a preacher can't say nigga. A preacher can't say, you know what I'm saying, be calling people heifers. A preacher can't say this. But the way things have been is the reason why people haven't grown. So although they may need to say something different, it's just like I told my cousin the other day, like, well, my cousin's wife, like, my kids listen, but they ain't really start listening until I said, I'm gonna whoop your ass instead of I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna spank your butt. That spank your butt ain't doing shit. They want, if you say a cuss word though, they like, oh, she mad now, and they get scared. So it's still kind of the same premise. So it's a matter of um teaching people acceptance of their mind, their thoughts, their personality, and being exactly who they are, but in a healed way, so that you don't have to always be defensive. Because we have done so much on our own collectively, we are very defensive because, if somebody says something to us wrong, before we take accountability, seek responsibility, and see how it applies to our lives, a large number of time people are like, mm-mm, or they get defensive. And most of that is because the older generation didn't teach them that mistakes are a part of life. Um, that sin isn't what you do, it's the intention behind the things you do. And you staying on the path of your purpose more than just doing something wrong. But if you make everybody feel condemned and everybody is going to hell when you don't do what I want you to do, then people become less receptive. And then even the people that seem receptive, they just going through the motions. That's why people don't really grow and change and become better.
Yeah, that's. I guess that's the part. Is there real change, or is there, you know, I guess if I was in church, I'd call them hypocrites. Those that want you to follow me, but do as I say, don't do as I do. You know, and it's worked for me for many years. But then again, I'm not the guy sitting up there in the pulpit, on Sunday morning.
See, but you easily could. The thing is that we think that because people preach, and teach and are of God, that they are like not regular normal people that understand you on your level, and then that makes people pretend to be somebody that they may. I mean, some of it is pretending, some of it is conditioning because now I got to recondition myself to act like this, to talk like this, to you know what I'm saying, say things like this versus what I really want to say. Because it's several video clips of preachers almost cussing, or you know what I'm saying, be about to say something off the chain. They catch themselves because they've been conditioned to where if the deacons don't like this, I'm gonna get fired. If the mothers of the church don't like this, then they're gonna do, you know what I'm saying? And it's more of, instead of grace, is more fear based. And a lot of people, a lot of our society is fear based narrative, not just you know, not just when it comes to war and things like vaccinations and the next scare tactic that they use in order to get us under control, but just across the board.
Well, now there's another question that I'm kind of sorry that you're not the only one here. That you're the only one here. But is Joe Biden black enough to get a second term?
Joe Biden ain't sane enough. Joe Biden is not functional enough. Joe Biden is barely holding on. It's like they put him out there to say, "We're gonna have you go out there and you're gonna read these lines just so that they can see that you still all right." Because they don't want Kamala to be president. She can't be the first black woman president by you know what I'm saying, by you know something happening to Joe or Joe not being fit for duty. But Joe is clearly not fit for duty. I don't think he's gonna make it 2 more years. I mean, I'm not saying anything is going to happen to him. I'm talking about his functionality is already on the downturn. So being black is not the issue. The issue is, one, they campaigned on shit that they can't get, they ain't gonna keep, like student loans. Then he giving all this money to Ukraine for what? It sounds fishy because y'all giving a whole bunch of billions of dollars to a place, when it's so much in our own society that needs to be addressed. It's so many things that need to take place here, but you giving billions upon billions every couple of
And
months.
not
Yeah, I'm gonna send them a couple more billion.
and not one word about inflation as far as that is concerned. But when
And
you
then they
start,
claim that we're not in a recession. I mean, well, I don't claim recession because I'm not gonna speak poverty over myself. But as a whole, they claim that there is no recession going on, although that you can see the numbers reflect that.
well, it's not only that, but now I've just like you've had your concerns with Stacy. I've had my concerns with Camilla.
Nobody got the link.
Hmm?
Mr. Scott just said he didn't get the link.
See,
See, you trying to blame me and Miss
no,
Sims.
no. I can show you on mine where it says the message was sent and none of them was returned. But anyway, evidently
He
Mr.
said he
Scott did.
want to expose the rap game.
Evidently, Mr. Scott didn't get it because if Mr. Scott had gotten it, I know he'd definitely be on. But but see, he sent the message to you. If he had sent it
No,
to
he
me,
sent it to your email.
he sent it to my email. I didn't get it.
You go look at your email. See,
He,
you
he,
see.
he- no, what he should have did was like you did. Send me an IM. He's got
See,
one,
but even that,
and I can just
I still had to email myself the link because I'm not getting it. I'm not going on it from my phone. I'm going on it from my desktop.
yeah. Uh, see, brother Williams got it.
Where
He
you
said
at?
he. No, well, he sent me a message that he won't be able to make it because he's still at work. But I'm just saying, yeah, I know he got it.
Are
And
you sure that he got it, or did he get
yeah,
the email? Because you sent two emails. You sent the
yeah,
email with the topics, but but we you didn't
and
send that yet.
well, and no, he sent me this at 6:40. So he said,
From the email that had the link, or from the email that had the
from the
topic.
from the email that had the link. I'm still at work. Sorry for the late notice. But anyway, yeah, hey, I'm all right having you to myself. It's okay. You know, I'll just
I
uh,
just sent
I,
him the link, and we'll
uh,
see if he joins. He said
yeah.
he gonna expose the rap game.
He sent me a link, which really didn't make any sense because he didn't research the history behind it, and it was there he is, and it was the link was Minister Farrakhan talking about the rap game. And while I appreciated what Minister Farrakhan had to say, about the lyrics and whatnot about the rap game, you know, but Minister Farrakhan has also made sure that he aligned himself with the proper rappers before he started bashing the rap game. I think it was what just was it 2 years ago? He did a thing with Jay Z, Dr. Casey. Was it Jay
He
Z?
actually had several meetings here in Atlanta with a lot of um artists, but I believe that the biggest flaw in the hip hop industry right now is that they're not reading enough books to get enough information to even be able to use the proper wordplay and metaphors and stuff so that they can speak more fluently and have a more diverse content base.
Well, once again, I think that goes back to not talking about the old school guys because most of them have managed to incorporate themselves or integrate their vocabulary, but you know uh, out here in LA, San Diego, Cleveland. I listen to some of these young kids, and it's evident, that they might want to rhyme, but you can't rhyme if you can't read. But you know, once again, that goes back to that
I mean,
goes back
but
to
that's an easy
education.
fix. They got audiobooks now.
You know, but when you're trying to put them lyrics down on a piece of toilet paper, while and like I said, I got nephews that I watch them go through this process. I mean, you know, some of them come in, they got three or four little pieces of paper with a little piece of this on it, a little piece of that, you know, but hey,
But that's how rhymes come together.
right,
A real
yeah.
creative, not just rappers, but a real creative ideas
Poetry and poetry itself, a lot of if you go back to high
even
school.
in other types of art, it does not always come together as, at one time. You might think of something like when I write books, when I wrote my spiritual human behavior book, it took me like about 8 years to really come up with everything that I needed to put in the book and do it in such a way that would really articulate what I was trying to say. So I would get ideals maybe once a week. It would be different concepts that would go into it. It's just like business planning. You might have the initial concept in one sitting, but it may take several years in order for you to perfect it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I started writing a book, and I feel, well, this is just, you just sit down and you write, and you get no, 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 no. It takes years to get those thoughts together. Mr. Scott, how you doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing very good. I'm doing very good. This has been a very stimulating conversation between the two of you, and you know, I, I guess my toxicity, I guess my reputation precedes me, and I didn't get a link, and that's
See,
quite
and he
fine. I
he
mean,
was trying to
I'm used to
blame me
these
and Miss
things.
Sims. Miss Sims didn't get the link either.
Well,
I,
like I said, hey,
oh, so this is a James King thing. Okay,
Uh
well,
huh.
yeah,
Uh
yeah.
huh.
I just decided that it was one of those nights I wanted Dr. Casey all to myself, and I just said,
see,
damn
that's
y'all.
greedy.
I
See, now
didn't get
that's
the
being greedy.
Mr.
That's
Scott.
being
I didn't
greedy
get the
because
link either.
you know I'm
I
gonna
didn't
jump
get the
up and
link
down
either,
about that.
radio.
You know I'm gonna jump up and down about that.
See,
Nobody got the link except for James. He said, Mr. Robert got the link. I don't think Mr. Robert got the link either. He probably sent you an email from the other because you did send something earlier. It just wasn't the link for that.
Thank you, thank you. But I'm not going to touch on. I know I've been called out on the rap game, and I know I'm attacked, being attacked from all about the rap game. But I'm not. All I'm going to say about it right now is one sentence, because I think Brother Ward needs to be here when we really get down into the mud on this thing. We need to have Brother Ward. But if it's not positive, why say it? I mean,
Speak life experience.
if it's not positive? What is your point in doing this stuff? And I'll get back to something else Dr. Casey said, and I'll kind of loop into it. I was at a picnic where they had all the people from where I grew up, this neighborhood here, and everybody was there. It was really foundational 46th Street people, is what I call them. We all grew up around here. But one of them gave me a picture of the grade school that they all went to. And I mean, these kids were maybe 10 years younger than me, maybe, in their 60s or 50s. And I looked at this picture, and all these kids had suits on. Half of them were black, half of them were white. And I'm saying, and now at that school, there's no black kids at that school. They farm them everywhere else. They don't go to that school anymore. So I'm thinking in my mind, this thing about diversity, what's the point? What's the point? If I want to be diverse, I'll be diverse. I don't need you to tell me to be diverse. I don't need you to tell me I got to sit next to this person to learn. Why couldn't they kids still go to the school they want to, and the parents that don't want their kid to go there, send them somewhere else? Why do we have to force this supposed diversity? They turn on the TV, there's a black guy with a white woman, Asian with a, well, okay, that's all well and good, but you don't promote that in real life. You don't, you don't say that's okay in real life, but to sell things, see. So to me, the diversity thing is a fraud, because people will do their own diversity. I believe when they can move a certain way, they'll do it. They want their kids to go to a certain school, they'll send them there. They'll figure a way to get them there. So this is, we get put into a rat race and put into this thing where they are puppeting, puppeting, and so we don't get anywhere. It's the same old soup, just warmed over.
Okay, well, Mr. Scott, now, I, let me ask you this then: if you don't believe, if you think that diversity is something that is forced upon us, then what was desegregation, and why did we go through that process if it's not going to be continued now? I mean, it wasn't diversion, uh, diversion and inclusion, wasn't that part of to us the civil rights movement, because we didn't want to be separate but equal. We wanted to be included.
Hmm.
So what was wrong with desegregation? And see, now I didn't send Miss Sims that I didn't
I
send
just
her
sent
that.
it. I
Oh,
Now
said
he's trying to clean it
okay.
up. He's trying to
Okay.
clean it up now. He's trying to clean it up.
No. So I want you to tell me what is the difference between us seeking desegregation back in the day and now diversion would seem to be an effect of that process.
James, it's the same thing over and over. It's the same inclusion, diversity. They can come up with all these kind of terms and all that. It goes back to the guy. What was that guy in Arkansas? Orville Faubus stood in front of that school and said, "These are not going to come in here."
It's
And
after
all the
dark.
adults,
You can say it. It's cool.
what?
It's after dark. You can say
He said it.
it.
They're not going to come in here, and I'm going to get the National Guard to make sure they don't come in here. And fortunately, we had a president at that time who had been a four-star general and said, wait a minute. You don't run this. I run this. These National Guards are under me. They're not under you. And we'll take care of you if we need to. And you let them kids into that school. And that's the same. It's the same thing. It's just light now. See, they're not going to stand in front of the school now and do that. They're not going to. Or the governor, this is the governor of Arkansas, stood in front personally and said these niggas are not
He
going to come
was
in here.
he wasn't the only one. You forgot about George Wallace.
Oh, of
You
course. No,
know,
I didn't, because my mom, they're Birmingham all the way. We used to
and
watch that
and
stuff on TV with the
and,
dogs and
and,
the hoses and all that. But see, this is the same thing. It's
and
just
the
light now.
University of Mississippi. I mean, come on now. We
I
can go
know.
down to
Oh,
it.
well, of course. But that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing.
So
It's just a different methodology.
so Miss Sims, good evening. How are you doing?
Greetings, all. Sorry to be coming in this later then, but I'm here.
Did
That's
you
all
get
right.
did you get
yes,
the link, Miss
James.
Sims? Did you get the link, Miss Sims?
Hey,
I'm just
hey,
curious about that. I just
Just within the last few minutes when Dr. Casey
okay.
sent me.
But
Yeah,
that's what I thought. That's fine. Thank you very
yeah,
much, Miss
uh,
Sims, for that. I
sure.
appreciate
hey, look here. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to say that it was my fault, and I'm sorry.
No,
But
no
everybody's in
problem.
now. But
No problems, James. We all have
because
our times.
hey,
Miss Mills, we ain't giving him no slack because he just was blaming us. He said it was our fault.
no, hey,
Yeah,
I
that's
can say,
another that's
I,
another situation. We'll talk
yeah,
offline later about that.
yeah, yes, we will. But Miss Sims, I want to know what you thought about Mr. Scott when he was talking about diversion and inclusion and all that. I mean, aren't those the things that we were supposed? I mean, we sang songs. We shall overcome. We had fire hoses on us. They walked across the bridge in Selma. Now, I mean, did we ask for something that we didn't want, or did we get something that that was the result of you know thinking that maybe we didn't need inclusion. Maybe we would have been better off if we had developed our own. I mean, we had our Black Wall Streets. We had our different economic and social programs. We took care of one another. Uh, so maybe uh, you know uh, it was like they said. Maybe the grass wasn't greener on the other side of the fence.
Um, I didn't hear all of Mr. Scott's answer, but I would put in the mix that you just described that was then, this is now. So you've had a whole new generation of people come into the mix, being born, grown up, young adults, and have not, especially with a lot of things that
you.
are now not taught to them from the older generations and in school. And so that leaves a big opening for others to come in who want to gain, who whose main agenda is power and control. They found ways to get into power and positions of control, and they have created various aspects of, especially if they didn't agree with what was going on back then when this was coming about, these things were coming about as you were describing, James. And so, adding to that, a lot, I think a majority, a lot of the people um, who could have, there were too many people remaining silent when all these changes were taking place, or they didn't recognize it as it was happening. And we are now in the position that we are now. Now we can, those of us that are aware of what is happening, and those of us who are beginning to learn and understand what is happening, if we continue to remain silent, things will just continue to go downhill, and we will a lot of the negative agendas that are out there will continue to grow or continue to be believed, and people will act. Their behavior will continue to act in that manner.
Dr. Casey, give us the point of view of your generation. Has inclusion and diversion worked?
Um, those are like subjective things because in some areas you can say that it has worked um subjectively, and in some aspects it has not worked. Um, when it comes to inclusion, as far as women, um, I see more women in places now that I've never seen women in places before. When it comes to race, it's I I mean, people are people, so even when black people are included, there's still always going to be a racial undertone when it's non-black people involved. But even when it's other black people involved, because black people have a very low tolerance for other black people in some instances. So if you're talking about like poverty versus non-poverty state, then no, because it's a degree of separation. But like we were talking before, it's structured to be a degree of separation. It's structured to, even when you talk about diversity and inclusion, it's limited. The structure is for it to be limited.
Um, Mr. Scott, you one of the other things that you talk about is the area, uh, the George Floyd area, and how it's been taken over, but yet and still, it doesn't seem like. Why isn't the community more involved if this is the case, Mr. Scott? If your city is trying to make a conscious effort and a constant effort to change, why isn't the community taking charge of this situation?
Well, if you're talking specifically about the George Floyd area, 38,
Yes.
I mean, I've gone to meetings, and like I said on our show, I believe I met Cedric Alexander, the new guy that they've hired to come in and take care of everything. Matter of fact, at this meeting at a park right down the street, Chief Amelia Huffman was there. Andrea Jenkins, president of the city council, was there. Several other people, in addition to Cedric. But what Cedric said was so. These people didn't know what he was talking about, but I did, because he got in there. And I didn't know who he was at first because he had a mask on. When he took the mask off, I could see who he was. He said, "I can't come in here and solve your problems." He says that, and he's been in these situations in city after city after city where these people don't have a clue, and so they want to call somebody in and say, "We're going to pay him," and sure, he's going to take the money. I'll take your money. Yeah, you called me, I'll take it. But He knows that they don't have a plan for what they want to do. They want him to come up with all of it. The community was there. They wouldn't listen to the community. They would just, I mean, it was a perfunctory meeting. They're supposed to have some more. Um, see, all these things, that we've talked about today, these marches and protests and desegregation and affirmative action and all these things, only things that we have wanted is we just want you to do right. It's like my mom used to tell us as kids, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You guys just be right. You guys just try to do right. And that's all we've had. That's all we wanted. And we've done it in ways that are nonviolent. We've done it in ways that are non-threatening. And so maybe it's time to look at other ways. And I'm not saying what those ways are, because, I mean, I'm not saying I have an answer to all of this. But when I see the politician, I mean, Ilhan Omar, the president of the city, they're all in this area. We got a county person, all in this area, and they can't fix one street. They can't figure out what to do with that. I mean, so this to me, this is an example of the ineptitude. And my status, like I say, all we just wanted you to do is do right. That's all we actually wanted you to do. All of these things we've done is to get you to do right. But it seems like maybe they can't. I don't. I mean, we've gone through this thing since we've been here.
Miss Sims, what's your thoughts on that?
Um, I agree with Mr. Scott in that Minneapolis is really going through a great change, transition, struggle internally, especially at the city council level. They are struggling individually, staff wise, council member wise, and you can pick this up. At least I think me and Mrs. Scott's generation can pick this up just listening to some of the meetings that are going on. We have an open meeting law here in Minnesota where public entities and meetings and things like that, they have to be open to the public, so they're go in person or still listen virtually. And they are just the staff, the council members listening to them. The last time I listened a couple of weeks ago, they man, some of them I kind of knew it was going to be a problem when our last voting in new council members were now on the council. You have, I think there's 13 members, and you have half of those members that while they were campaigning were defund the police, and the other half was not of that mind. So I knew back then that there was going to be when these people came, gotten the new members got in place, that there was going to be a clash in regards to still where the ones that believe in defunding, they haven't changed, even though the city community voted not to defund the police department. Those council members, they didn't stop, and they haven't stopped with their thoughts of to defund the police, defund the police. And they may not come right out and say it, but you can hear it in some of the ways that they handle themselves and the things they say when they have their meetings. And one of the things that I picked up on, the city is divided into different wards. I'm Ward 5, and Mr. Scott might be Ward 4. And so we have our representatives from each ward on that council. And I listened to one of the things that came about the last meeting was that staff was presenting an issue of how one of the police precincts were running out of space. They had been running out of space for years, and they'd been looking for other places to establish more space, and they had found it. And so they were doing a presentation of the data and what all that they had done to bring to the council for them to make a decision, yes, to go ahead with these plans. We do see, the, the need for, and each they would not consent to something like as simple as that. Clearly, they had run out of space. Uh, Clearly, more space was run out of space a long time ago, and they had even budgeted time space. But council members were like saying, "Well, my constituents this says I can't, I'm not going to give an answer because my constituent say this and my constituents that." So it was a mess to me, and it was real sad to see and watch. And so that's kind of one of the internal struggles, and it's just and they will keep going downhill and splitting unless, like Mr. Scott's doing, he went to a meeting and people like me, if I can't get to a meeting, right in and they have meetings around, council members have meetings around the communities, you know, saying out loud so other people can hear in terms of not agreeing with the way the direction's going in and what's generally happening, especially over in the area that Mr. Scott's speaking of. It's, I mean, if there isn't a change or some sort of change at those high levels of the policymakers and the powers that be, it's going to get worse in terms of the community will start turning on itself. I think generally the community at large can see the necessity for those people to be looking out, even though they may represent one certain ward. We see the necessity and the wisdom, and they represent everybody, all the wards, and do things that are in line with us, other than just segmenting themselves off individually.
You know I'd like to ask James and Dr. Casey. You're not in Minnesota. You're looking at this, from outside looking in. But what would be your thoughts? I mean, where this happened, where this George Floyd happened, what do you think should happen there?
Well,
I mean, what do you think should and just really try to fill that area up? Should it be some type of
no, I have no problem with them making it into a memorial and for the remembrance of George Floyd. But I would like to know why there's so much of a opposition to something that would be dedicated to George Floyd, or would be a George Floyd circle, or some type of recognition for what happened there. But why isn't anyone talking about getting rid of the liquor stores? Why isn't anyone talking about bringing in a grocery store? I mean, these are things that your community needs. You're not talking about, tearing down that liquor store that's down there. That liquor store was there before George Floyd. It's still down there now. So why don't you get rid of some of the things that are actually causing the problem within the neighborhood? And then, as a residual effect, maybe you can make some other programs that would benefit the neighborhood in general. But you can't leave the same establishments in effect and then think that the neighborhood's going to change. If you got guys that are still sitting on the same stoop with the same liquor bottles, you got the same type of prostitution or crime running around the neighborhood, then those are the things that you should change first. Concentrate on that. That's me on the outside looking in. Dr.
Uh,
Casey.
as far as what they should do with it, I think that they should ask the family what they would like for it to happen. I definitely agree with James as far as the changes as far as the surroundings, the store, and all of those things, because a lot of times it festers violence and drugs and all of the other things, especially when you have the defund the police narrative going over your head. And then so now you don't want us to be funded, so we won't be involved over there to help protect you all. And that allows more crime to happen and fester around, because it's almost like, um I think most wood yards have mice, just because mice and wood yards are kind of, they go together. But if you don't set traps for the mice, if you're not doing things proactively to kind of keep everything under control, then it will be more and more and more, kind of like the rat problem in New York, where it's just, it's an accumulation of it. And because there is no um, trash all over the place, they literally put their trash on the curves. There's nothing preventative to kind of keep down the accumulation of more. It makes it worse. So it's the same thing when you talk about the George Floyd, the street in the area where they're not policing it no more. So of course, the people that are there are going to take advantage of that.
And really, the elephant in the room, well, in the place, is that store, that cup foods place. I mean, that is really kind of what draws all of the negative. And now several of the businesses closed, but people have taken them over. And they try to sell things and they're boarded up. And I mean, the visual is really something to really see, to go down there and see. It doesn't appear to be a safe place. And then after nighttime, that's the place to
But
avoid.
when you get that type of evil that happens in a place like that, and that evil doesn't just dissipate because the incident is over, that energy stays in that area, and people feel a certain type of way in that area. And again, it's almost like now the way you describe that there makes me think about New Jack City and how, the environment was in that movie where all these bad things happen, and it didn't get better by chance. It continued to get worse because of the energy in the place. So whatever the energy festers, that's what's going to accumulate.
I think when Dr. Casey was talking earlier before she spoke now, I she said a word that came out, and I thought, yeah, some of that's in there too with human behavior. That was one party resenting the other party because they didn't get what
Mhm.
they wanted. Some of that, you can never discount human behavior in regards to um, whatever they're espousing in
Mhm.
regards to just everyday life and especially politics. And
Actions and
I just,
reactions, consequences that come
yeah,
with
yeah.
everything.
And I guess I didn't realize when back when the talking about George Foreman memorial and things like that. I thought there would be a memorial, etc., etc. I didn't realize until Mrs. Scott has talking about more and more how they have actually diverted traffic and almost closed down that area over there. And that area, and that to me says more is at play under
Mhm.
the surface, because that street is a major throughway street of the city. And if it's gotten to the point where even buses are redirecting, where they go around that area, something definitely is going on. And what's I see kind of slowly taking place with the closures of all and boarded up businesses and stuff, that what's going to happen, Wall Street is going to come in, and business people with money are going to come in uh, and reopen that area in regards to what they want us to be. A lot of black business displacement is going to take place. Probably is already taking place behind the scenes, and on paper they have to get the paperwork in order and this and that and funding and things. And what slowly is going to happen, uh, maybe even down to the point of where people, black folk in that area, displacement. You have displacement of homes and communities and businesses. And my
It'll
feeling
be a,
is I kind of
it'll be
suspect
a
that
subway
is
stop,
taking
Miss
place.
Sims.
Huh?
It'll be a stop on your light train on your light rail highway.
Well, that's going down another area. It crosses that light rail. It crosses that street on
But,
further
but,
on down the line.
but see, the
Yeah.
thing is that these people haven't been able to come up with any kind of plan or anything. I mean, like,
I think you just probably need some strong black businesses in that
yes.
area so that
I
because
mean,
if you
say
put
this. I mean,
There's something out there that's stopping this. That's
yeah, but yeah,
allowing
exactly,
all
exactly.
these
It's
closures.
something that is keeping is keeping the community. I think some of it is almost what Dr. Casey said in her assessment. I mean, look at it this way: the police they're in jail. Okay, there's consequences for them. The George Floyd family has been paid. I mean, they made a settlement right away, and they've been paid. I mean, we can't do more. You can't bring the man back. We can't do that. But you still have cup foods there. You still have all this blight and all this stuff that was never there before that, and that cup foods. So all I'm saying is that we got a mayor, city councils, all these people sitting there, and they had the last election was supposed to be to vote in so the mayor has more power instead of all 13 people on the council have to vote for everything to make anything happen. And so it's to me it's a situation here where they just can't put the right players at the table and say, let's get started on this. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's fix this. I mean, the event has happened. The
But
police are in jail.
but Miss,
Families been paid. And so where do we go from here? And it's like they just don't know. They
but
don't know. And it
but
sits there and it gets worse as you do that. It festers. It festers as you don't do anything.
but Mr. Scott, how can you bring the community together on a solution when your community is constantly pulled apart by different sections? You know, as you talk about Ilion, uh, Mayor Fry has his own agenda. You have a police chief that really doesn't have any power. She's just there as a figurehead. You now have people on uh, the right who criticize people like me talking about defund the police. Now they're talking about defunding the FBI. So I mean, there are there has to come a time when either the citizens have to take charge and hold these people accountable, which means that you don't elect them to another term, or you find a way for everyone to, as Rodney King said, everybody to get along and everybody to get, to find a way for them to unite instead of everybody trying to get their piece of the pie. Why not try to get the pie?
Well, again, there's another undercurrent to this that I think Dr. Casey hit on the head again, and that's the black on black relationships in these things. I mean, we have people of color on the city council. We have people that live in these neighborhoods. We have people that should be, they're on there for a reason. They're getting paid. I mean, the mayor gets almost $200,000 a year. I mean, these people are getting paid, but yet they bring in this consultant who, this guy, he's never set foot in Minneapolis. He never been here before. He don't know anything about the community. He's got to figure out what's going on before he can really even help. So why we, and again, that's a question, why we can't sit down and figure something out like a neighborhood, why that continues to be, and it's a lot of emotion to that. I mean, the world saw what happened on that corner. So I mean, I get that. There's still trauma about that. But the people in that neighborhood and the kids growing up and the people that they need to be able to move ahead. They need to somehow be able to get off of that as an emphasis on this, what this community is, as opposed to this happened, we're going to do something about this, and we're going to move ahead. And that's why I go to these meetings. And these are the same things I said, and I said it to Cedric Alexander. I said it to the city council president who chased me out of the place to shake my hand and talk to me. I said, well, that's great. What are we going to do? What are we going to do about this? And so,
People that are used to living in survival mode and they are used to like scraping and scrapping to get, they don't understand the concept of um make it better because this happened. Now what do we do to move forward? They understand the, I want to say, kind of a groveling and a victimization mindset, because as long as you are a victim, you stay in that same energy versus a person that has survived and is seeking to thrive. They seek something that's different. Otherwise, you just keep on cycling through the same energy. It goes back to behavior patterns. And it's just a cycle of energy, because now that energy is there until somebody comes, and it's like breaking a generational curse until somebody comes and says, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. And there's enough people to say, these are the things that need to happen, and start running people, not running people off, but in a sense, running off the people, the bad people with good energy. But as long as people are in survival mode and they are feeling defeated, then they're going to keep the same mindset, which, cycles through the same type of thing over and over and over again. But instead of saying, this happened, but it doesn't have to remain this, it doesn't have to be here, stop here, or, we can begin to take steps. That's why I said you probably need very strong business minded people um, that can come in, especially black people that can come in and kind of police your own neighborhood, because at this point we need that more than anything, but especially in places like that where the police have a grudge with the community.
Uh, Miss Sims, I want to kind of address uh, this to you because and I'm going to use a personal experience. When I moved here about 10 years ago or so, we had a very bad homeless problem. I live on where I have a back alley that runs along the back of my house. So, we would have people back there with their little carts and stuff and, sleeping at night and, guys coming around during the day getting that high on and whatnot. And it started out as just me, one person, like, hey, man, like, you can't be doing that here. Like, people live here. We got kids in the neighborhood,
Mhm.
so forth and so on. Then the neighbors started saying, well, hey, if you can't do that over there in front of Mr. King's house, you
You
can't do
can't
that
do
in
it
front
here.
of my house either. So eventually, without bringing in the police every night, without, having to resort to violence, you know, people start getting the idea. They start moving out of they start moving away from the neighborhood. Now, at first, they might only move 2 blocks up the street, but that was 2 blocks away from my house. Okay. So sometimes it just takes the smallest amount of effort
Hmm.
in order to get the
yeah.
neighborhood involved. Has anyone tried that approach, Miss Sims?
Well, and I'm speaking from my experiences here. The organization that I was employed by is a organizer called Micah, and one of the things that we, even though I'm retired from a job that pays money, I'm still involved in the community, various community organizations. And one of the things I still continue with Micah is kind of a advisor, a consultant. And one of the things that Micah has dealt with and is dealing with, and that we are in partnership with is an organization made of people that are homeless or in have all become homeless. It's called this particular one is called Freedom from the Streets, and we have meetings every week on Mondays, and then there's Tuesday, etc., etc. So over the last couple of years, I have been involved in some of the homeless population or in sheltered homeless people. Like at one time on Don Ellen's program, I heard Mrs. Scott, and they were referring to, well, what happened to the people that were at a certain location? And my thoughts, well, those people are there. Why don't you all know where these people have gone? Because I do. They're some of the people that my organization and other community members are dealing with. And one of the things that has come out of my listening actually to uh, unsheltered people themselves and where they're coming from, just within the community themselves, they just like any other community, they themselves have different ideas and opinions and in regards to how they treat themselves and how they want to be treated from others. One of the things I think when um, people become homeless, that comes out of us as our humanity, we want to do something about. We don't want to see people struggling and having hard times, being mistreated, etc., etc. That's one aspect of it, and I think at this point, and I keep saying to the people that I work with, and at our meetings, Friday meetings, we have people from city council, a lot of the infrastructure of the social service areas. And one of the things that I keep saying to even my people that are still organizers and things like that with Micah, it is easier for a society, and it is shown to deal with the social service aspect of homelessness because we immediately deal our humanity steps out and we want to find blankets during the winter and food and things like that, and a lot of that is happening, James, whether it's in the news or not. But I keep saying to not, and even we're at the point even now where we've gotten the Washington's Department of Justice coming in and questioning why looking into why a lot of the people have gone to parks and stuff to find places to live. And that aspect of it gotten, they're doing reports and stuff on them. But one of the things I keep saying, trying to tell everybody, and I don't know if it's sticking or not, is that there's a social service aspect of being homeless, and then there's a social justice piece of it. Very few, to me, there's not as many people dealing with the social justice aspect of it versus the social service, because social service is easier to do. If you're dealing with the social justice, you're approaching the city council members, the legislature, politician, questioning why are you allowing this to happen? Why are you allowing Wall Street to come in here and make money off people being homeless and in really is dire needs? Why are you allowing all this to happen to people being displaced and confronting that issue of it? And until you, that issue of the social justice aspect of it is very loud and clear, the social service and people becoming more and more homeless is going to continue to grow and grow, which it has, which it really has done and continues to grow and deal with. And so here again, it's speaking out and getting people to listen and to see that there's other aspects you need to bring into this and talk about and think about in terms of it's going. And then within the community, the unsheltered and homeless community themselves, you will hear the various differences in opinions of what's going on and the struggles that they're having. just in relating to the different organizations that are trying to help and the people that are helping. One aspect that and I tell them of the homeless community itself is some of them don't want to go into a lot of the city and the county are buying up to the point of buying up actually motels and hotels to house a lot of the homeless people in. Some homeless people are saying, "No, I don't want to go into that because
because
they've
of
had
the
bad experiences
mistrust
in other places."
because of the mistrust of society.
Right? Some of
Yeah,
that's there.
and the government.
Some of that is there, and it's legitimate. While at the same time they're saying we want to stay out, out in the cold, this and that, and whatever, uh,
It's
because
more about control.
yeah, and some of the places that were organizations that have been in place and first over the years that they have gone to those areas and they haven't been well managed in regards to just for the people that are having to stay there. And so that's one thing, one aspect that has turned them against it, against and distrust of being uh, going to various other area locations that might be improved and better staffing, etc., etc. And then there's a other aspect of I hear people saying we don't want to go to these places because we want to remain outside in the cold and we've formed relationships with each other, etc., etc. And along with that, that also says that while we're outside and don't have to come inside, we can do what we want to do. We can, I mean, drugs are coming in. People are doing harm to each other, and a lot of the things due to people do inhumane things that people do to each other just like any other city is happening in that community. And I say I will never because I wouldn't want to live out in the cold and harmful situations and my family to live out in the cold. I can never support your decisions stand out in that cold and that threatening societies among you all. I could never support you wanting to stay out there. But it's
But
your
Miss
decision
Sims,
to stay out there, and you've made that. But also, one of the things that's staying out there, a lot of that population wants to wants the community to take care of them in terms of uh, supplying them food and heaters and et cetera, and that's wanting to have your cake and eat it too. So I have to think and act beyond my humanity in terms of what's going on here. There's at least two sides to everything.
do you, Miss Sims, do you really think that the mindset of a homeless person in Minneapolis is different from the mindset of a homeless person here in San Diego? I mean, people, so people homeless in San Diego are okay because they don't have to sleep out in the cold. It's warm here most of the time. And
25, 30 below.
yeah, so it's okay for them to be homeless. But for the ones that have to sleep out in the cold, you can't understand how they want to sleep out in the cold. But the thing of it is that, I mean, a lot of people have different reasons for being homeless, but I don't think that we should necessarily condemn them for being homeless as much as we should condemn society for not making arrangements for those people that cannot take care of themselves. And I'll give you an example. Probably when Mr. Scott was a young man, and when you were a young lady, and when I was a young
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago.
man. Well, we had mental institutions and services
Yes.
usually somewhere around our city. Whether I mean, it might not have been politically correct, but we called them crazy houses because that's where we put people that had those type of
State,
problems.
state hospitals.
Okay,
State
well,
hospitals.
okay, well, I know, there at one time you could get a bounty, in Youngstown if you took a person down to the mental hospital and they were admitted, you got $35. But anyway, the thing
That's
that
it.
well, hey, 30, 30 $35
Well, back
back in
then that was a lot of money.
in 1972, that was a lot of money. I mean, i- i- comparatively speaking. But my point is that now that we've gotten rid of these institutions that take care of these people, where do you expect them to
What do
go?
you mean take care of though? Because
Okay,
being put into a mental health institution where they're forcing you to have medicine, they're forcing you to do all these different things, and it's used to dumbing you down and control you.
sound
That's
like
not a
prison
place
to
that a
me.
lot of people. I mean, it's probably worse than prison because they're forcing you to take psychotic medication that already has numbing effects and already have other side effects. So when you think about that, and then I remember when I was coming up, there used to be a YWCA where women could go and get shelter. But in some of those environments, people were getting abused, they were getting
Oh
beat
yeah,
up, neglected, and all those other things. So there is nobody that is going to really rush into a housing situation that they have no control of. And sometimes people are in homeless and unsheltered situations because of being controlled or other circumstances where abuse was happening, and then they just selected instead of allowing someone to abuse me, mistreat me, or anything else because they want to feed me or they want to let me
or
stay
or
somewhere.
or
I would
because they
prefer
have
to do this.
because they have a grant and they have a certain quota for them that they have to reach in order for them to keep that grant going. And, and,
Hmm.
and I understand, Mr. Scott.
I,
What's
I
your
gotta
thoughts
go,
on?
James. We've been
Okay,
on here for a long time.
I know. See, you brought Mr. Scott and Miss Sims here, so I'm gonna let you have your final thoughts, and I'm gonna stay here with them for a few more minutes. So go ahead, Doctor Casey.
So my final thoughts is really it's just about understanding more of being a human and looking at perspectives from putting yourself in other people's shoes and situations. A lot of things that we judge prematurely or unconsciously is because we have never taken the second to say, what if I was in that position, not just, well, I would never be in that position. You never know where you would be. So putting yourself in a position to say, if I had to be in that position, how would I look at this situation? How would I not judge myself, but how would I handle it? What would I do differently? Or how could I place myself in somebody's shoes mentally, physically, emotionally to understand people? And then that would take a lot of the condemnation and the judgment and all of those other things. And then a lot of it has to do with self acceptance because a lot of people are forced into not so good situations because they're dealing with people that lack control in their own lives, that lack self acceptance and self esteem in their own lives. And then they end up projecting the lack of control on others by trying to control somebody else or trying to do this or trying to do that. So if we look at ourselves, it's going to always come to examining ourselves, accepting ourselves, looking at ourselves, and then placing ourselves mentally where the next person is so we can understand them and be less judgmental, less condescending, even, and kind of taking our own world because each one of us here and each person listening, we all have our own world that we live in. And I mean, the things that we encounter, the things that we're involved in, the things that we experience. Every one of us have different experiences, which means that we all have different worlds. And when you begin to look at your world and begin to mentally see your world in other people's world and see other people's worlds and taking on that perspective, It will really change the narrative of how we live and experience life as humans. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter anything else. At the end of the day, we're all humans living in this existence as souls. We're souls living in a human existence. Let me get that straight. And the reality is that we have to live life as humans and not how we've been programmed to see life.
Hey, well, thanks as always, Dr. Casey. I did have you to myself for almost an hour, so hey, you have
It
a
was
great.
like 2 hours. We've been going for a little long time. But I see you all next week, and hopefully James send that link out and don't be trying to blame us for his mishap.
Well, you called him. You called him on it. So
All right, see y'all.
All right, you have a good night, Dr. Casey. Talk to see you next week. Uh, so, Mr. Scott, as I said, is there any way that we can get that situation with the George Floyd area? Is there any way that we can have a some type of compromise or community development on exactly what's to be done down there and how it can be used as a positive uh, uh, manner going forward. I mean, like you said, the family's been paid. You know, the incident is over. The police have been put in jail. But do you also think that just like we have memorials to other things, uh, you know, uh, that this is something that the city should memorialize, or do you think that that would do more to widen the division instead of helping the situation?
well, there's several things I think, and I'm just saying what I think they need to do. First of all, I don't know that in any city that you go to that there's going to be somebody that tells you that's the bad side of town. You don't want to go there. This is the good side of town. I think in any city you go to, I know when I used to go to Detroit, one of my cousins said, we're going to go party on the east side. And I was like, my grandfather was standing there, no, you don't want to go over there, east side. But I had a great time over there. I met some of the boxers over there from the Kronk gym. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it was just tremendous. But there's that connotation. And I think what they need to do, one thing in the Floyd, it would be nice to have a place where people can gather. Maybe you see some reminders or pictures, but you can have, like, what's that place, Steele, on the corner of that coffee shop there at over north on Broadway, in about Emerson.
You gotta be talking to you, Miss Sims. You know I don't know.
Well, she's muted, but I can't think of the name of it. But something like that would be a place where people can come together and still maybe see some reminders of what happened. But we move on. We definitely have to get rid of the cup food. The activity is centered around that. So much of the nefarious activity has been centered around that for years. And that's been going on there for a long time.
Well, why
I mean,
doesn't
no,
the
we ever get
city?
away from this issue of,
Why doesn't the city declare it a nuisance?
yeah, well, see that part, I don't know. I mean, maybe they need to buy that building out or purchase that building or something. I'm sure they're holding out. I mean, for something. But
Well,
until they really look at every community is important, and they need to treat this community. They had some carjackings. There's this little suburb out here in Minnesota called Edina. Oh, it's just south of where the Floyd thing is, maybe 3 or 4 miles. They had a carjacking out there, and I'm telling you, oh my goodness, they snuffed all that stuff. So things can be done, but it's just too many factors. You got the community, you've got the city inertia, you've got people that don't want to leave the area, that they don't want to move for whatever. I mean, it's really a mess over there. And there's shootings regularly. There's drug deals regularly. I mean, this stuff is just a regular eyesore in that particular community that there needs to be something there, and we need to put the community's minds together and fix it and say, first of all, open up the street so that the buses and cars can go through would be the first thing, and will help the businesses that have remained there. There's just a few, and build more businesses. It's a great retail area, and just have to have the mindset to really get out. But I don't know if there's always going to be something that say, well, this is a bad area of your town. I mean, I think that's every city you go to that's going to say this is an area that's, if you
Well,
don't know people, you don't know where you're going, it's probably best to stay away from it.
well, now, okay,
Well, to me,
Mr. Scott, when you go to Chicago or you go to any other city and you hear Martin Luther King Boulevard, or Jesse Jackson Street, you know what type of streets, what type of neighborhood that is already. So, I mean, there are certain connotations. If this street is located here, then you know that supposedly this is a neighborhood that you're supposed to avoid. This is a bad neighborhood, but yet and still we do have people, of color. We have minorities. We have people that live in these communities that they need help just as much as anybody else. Go ahead, Miss Sims.
um, and listen to Mr. Scott's what he was saying about the community. My first thought is to approach the city council and questioning them. Why are they allowing these things to happen? There's a political aspect to this, to the shutdown and the deterioration of that area. It won't be done in approaching them unless you can get on the agenda of their regular meetings, to be able to publicly ask them that and be on the agenda and have minutes on there. Usually, if you just want to make comments, you only got two or three. Or if you have to meet with them separately, and ask them and put that question to them. Why are you allowing this? Why are you allowing Wall Street to come in here and do this and do that and find out what's stifling them? What do they need from the community to help them to not allow this to happen? There may be something that legitimately that their reasoning is while they are allowing it. But to me, I go first to the my thing is to go first to the powers that be. Why are you allowing this? Because the through society, not only locally but nationally, people believe that, and even the politicians believe that they are the ones in control. They are the ones that make the final, etc., decisions. When it's really, in reality, the way it's supposed to be set up, the taxpayer, the people, the residents, the community are the ones that moves this show, that supports them financially, etc., etc. Anytime you got money in the game, you got to say so in the game. But society has it structured and have us believing that we have to follow the politicians, and we have to listen to what they're saying, and we are free. There's a fear out there of approaching the politicians, especially at the legislature. That really isn't so. It's just kind of the opposite. And unless the public or people like me and Mr. Scott and other people remind politicians of this aspect, that hey, they're going to keep doing and making decisions that are going to keep them in power and keep them in control and keep this chaos moving. One of the things that sickened me to my stomach and irritated me, I accidentally saw last week on YouTube. There is now a live, and I saw this happen in other bigger cities, but now in Minnesota, they have a live cam that is listening to police, that is going to hotspots for on police calls and actually taking cameras. Some people are making money off the criminal aspect of what's going on in Minneapolis, which continues to deteriorate the image of Minneapolis. And I said, "What in the world is going on here?" So literally, it was live, and some of the locations that they were describing, what was going on, the street names, and et cetera, et cetera. I knew these areas, but there were actually live cameras each night going out, uh, putting out there in the national eye, and continue to make money off the negative things that are happening here and people dying here in Minneapolis and in Minnesota here. And I thought, man, that's sick. And that does the city council know what's going on? And it's some company on their own that they are able to do this, maybe under the Freedom of Information Act or et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, that wasn't going on last year. I don't think this live cam, because, gee whiz, I looked at this and said, when did this start happening? So there here again. There's the behind the scenes stuff that's going on.
Well, with that being said, I'm going to go and give everyone their final thoughts, and I'm going to start myself today. Mr. Sims always says that I never give mine, but my thoughts are twofold. First of all, when we see what's happening with the right, and a year or two ago, uh, when you said the words defund the police, you got all kinds of kickbacks, and you're promoting crime within the neighborhood, and you're part of the problem and not a part of the solution. But now, when it seems like Republicans do not get their particular platform across, or some of their people are being investigated, just like with the Supreme Court. It seems that we have all of this alarmist talk about how America is uh, going back to the age of lawlessness. How uh, you have to be a part of a certain class in order for you to be protected by the law. And now we have the right screaming, defund the FBI. Now, I thought it was bad enough when, you look at the history of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, and how they subverted the civil rights movement, and how uh, black organizations have been the target of the FBI for years, and things were fine. But now, when we start talking about investigating those other people, oh no, you've went a state too. You've taken a step too far. Where was this defund the FBI when they were killing Black Panthers, when they were killing our black leaders? Where was this talk about defunding of the FBI then? You know, so you know sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for because it might come back to bite you in the ass. Mr. Scott, your final thoughts.
Well, just a couple things on what Miss Sims was saying about the homeless, and having worked in social service for a long time, I've always viewed social service as something that's not permanent. But social service should be there to help you get out of social service. That okay, this is a temporary, this is a thing to kind of get you over the hump and figure out where you're going to go next. And things like I understand the economy has a big, huge hammer on everybody, where prices rise and rent rises, and but I bought the first little piece of property I had from a lady that had property. If I was really smart, I could have got a lot more from her. Your tenants, this is what you tell them when they first move in. You tell them Jesus is Jesus and the Lord is the Lord. If you don't pay your rent, you'll sleep outdoors. And I said, okay, even though I was not that kind of landlord at all. I was very, but this idea of social service helping people to move on. And I think that that's kind of been dissipated. Now people are homeless. They rather be homeless than be in a housing instead of having a plan to get off the streets. The streets are dangerous. If you have kids, it looks like now when I did child protection, if you were living outside in the street or whatever, you might catch a case, child protection. And now I see kids out there now with families. And so, this whole thing has gotten really, and as James, you said earlier, they closed. My first job, I worked for the state rehabilitation, and I did internships at state hospitals. And one of them in St. Peter was like the crazy house. That's where they sent dangerous people to St. Peter. I think St. Peter is still open. But they had them in Anoka. They had them in Cambridge. And now all these people are on the street now. All those people that were in those places, now as Dr. K said, maybe they are medicating them. I guess I didn't really know like what treatment or plans they had for people in these places. But unless you legitimately, when I worked in rehab, just quickly, we had a tier system. If you were known to have a drinking problem, drug player, and you were Black and you didn't have a high school education, you were eligible for services. You were considered pretty disabled. In other words, we could put up there and send you to get your GED, maybe go to vocational school, maybe get to an on-the-job training place where they see that you come in every day and they'll hire you. But I just don't see society really focusing on those kind of things. I see that they're just reactionary now. Reactionary. People that are homeless, well, we got to move them from here. We got to move them there. We got to, and they don't see a very comprehensive look because I guess they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to.
In San Diego, we move them by the seasons. If it's time for baseball and they're playing downtown at Petco Park, then the homeless have to go out to.
They gotta go.
They got to leave downtown. If it's football season and you got 2 or 3 universities at San Diego State and a few others, you got people coming into town, the homeless got to move. But you don't solve the problem by making the homeless transit.
Just by putting it somewhere else, and that seems to be kind of the mode, the way things are going now. So again, I think the social services should be a temporary thing. People need to know that, and people should be working with the counselors or services for a plan. But there are always going to be those that are so challenged mentally, physically, or what have you that, those services and funds are there for people. We just have to have the right assessments and the right tools to do that. But thanks for finally sending me the link, James. I appreciate it.
I'm going to send everybody the link individually next week to make sure that they get it. Uh, so, uh, but yeah, well, evidently, Dr. Casey didn't get hers, Miss Sims didn't get hers, and you didn't get yours.
Yep. And I tried using links that have been sent to me on previous weeks,
In
but
the past, but
that
that
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
No,
That doesn't work. The one in the
those don't
past,
work. You have
that
to use
doesn't
the
work.
current ones.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was definitely a total system failure. A total system failure. So
Yeah, so we'll work on that. But I'm glad we were able to get both of you in, and you know, hey, I'm retired, so and I'm out here in California. I'm 2 hours behind you, so I got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
We can
yeah,
talk
I
as
guess I
long as
better
you
get rolling here too.
want. All right, Mr. Scott. I'll see you next week. You have a great day, Miss Sims. Take us
All
home.
right, Miss Sims. Miss Sims, good to talk
Pardon.
to you.
Um. In two things in regards to um the homeless. Speaking of the homeless population or the unsheltered, I totally agree with you. My humanity and any humanity says to me that you don't look down on or blame people, etc., for being homeless. At any minute, any one of us could become homeless. Even me, I thought I was close to being homeless. I was married for 29 and a half years, and I've been divorced about close to 20 years now. But I can remember riding before I had a car and stuff, riding, going past a shelter. It was called Mary's Place, and which I had visited years before, going past there on a bus, thinking that when you get the that's one of the, and you become homeless for various reasons, and one of the reasons can be through divorce, because through divorce you split up about the house, etc. And it was a real reality to me that in going through this divorce, if we argue over the house and who gets the house, I could end up being homeless because the ex made much more than I did as he was in education, teaching education, and I was in data entry and things like that. And so that was a real fear of me in regards to going going through divorce, the aspect of having to deal with homeless. And I remember thinking, driving past there, and if I did become homeless, what would be the first step that I would need to do to get help not to be homeless? And that was that those realities came to me. So I would never down anybody in a dire situations. I think it should be against the law for any city to allow homelessness to exist permanently. People be like I said, people become homeless for various reasons, through sometimes through reasons uh, not of their own. Some people, become homeless with bad decisions, whatever it is. But once you become homeless, we as a society and even the homeless population themselves can work together to deal with it. And so it will be temporary, that your position to be very temporary, and for you to move on to better grounds in dealing with not becoming homeless, or coming out of that. Because as I said, there's a difference between social service and social justice has to work together to deal with this and to stop it. Because if you don't have that other aspect of stopping it, you are continuing to allow people to become homeless and go through being homeless in that homeless generation. And Michael works with, as I said, an organization called Freedom from the Streets and No More Streets. This makes the second organization that we work with through the years. And we were there. Our goal has been, and which they're doing, is to support them in their efforts to um, become their own five, get on their feet and organize for themselves, being organized and for themselves to have their own 501(c)(3), which they have done and stuff like that, and to support them in becoming more independent, and then we work to be interdependent, and that's what's happening now, because a lot of the folks that are in that organization, they have we have provide them platforms, political platforms, to speak to legislatures and state people and things like that, with the goal in mind. Their goal is to speak for themselves, have their own platform, have their own 501(c)(3), and that's happening. So, but I don't know of any other organization here in Minneapolis or the states that's doing that. There may be some, but I haven't heard of that. And so, keeping in mind, it's like I say to other people, just because I make less than you do doesn't make me less of a person or less of an individual. And a lot of things play into like I said before, the unsheltered or homelessness, because there's the visible homeless people, who are people that go to work every day, make money, live in cars, or live with their parents or friends and things like that. And even the local and state government here in Minnesota have different definitions what homelessness is. I think here, the government definition is, if you even live under a bridge or anything that covers your head, you're not homeless. But the state says that if you are living out in the cold someplace, or you're couch hopping, or living with your parents and stuff, you're considered homeless. And if you're considered homeless, then there's various social monies that are available for you to help you get along. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Even young adults like my children, that children that live with their parents and work every day and make more than their parents, in the aspect, they are considered homeless, but they don't realize that, because they're working every day to pay off school loans and debts and things like that. So here again, my closing word is to any and everybody, also focus on the social justice aspect of being homeless and unsheltered in regards to dealing with that situation. Because if you don't work with them both together, then you're allowing the homeless to increase. And really, what's happening, the power plays are allowing a segment of our population to be recreated into a community of their own, and that's homelessness. And so my closing words is, do both of them, think of both avenues at the same time. Get in there and listen to the people who are homeless in regards to let them tell you what they're experiencing, what help they need from you, etc., etc. And with that, James, I will close out and say the end until the next time.
All right, you have a great week, Miss Sims, and I will make sure that everybody gets an individual invite next week. So you have a great night.
I
And
believe you. Yeah, I believe you, but also I know you get busy sometimes, James, and
yeah,
sometimes things are out of your control, like the internet breaks down or whatever. So I'll allow you that space. But if you stay in that space, we can okay. But when you start blaming us, like Dr. Casey's going to tell on you, I'm
no, hey,
blaming us.
my when I send it from Gmail, it actually says mail delivered, but
Yeah,
I do know that
yeah, yeah,
sometimes StreamYard
yeah, yeah.
doesn't get to everybody, and
Yeah,
I'll
and when I looked at it, I thought something was strange, because you usually send out the notice of the website of what all that you need to
yeah.
go to, and then the second email is what the topics are going to be. And when I didn't see that first invite, I thought, okay, something's going on here. I'm gonna give him some slack.
All right, Miss Sims. You have
All
a
right,
great
good night.
week. I'll see
Happy
you next
prayers.
week.
Peace and love. Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.